Okay, welcome to day 30 of the animation workout. Is this playing? Yeah, it is. Okay. So today we're doing O'Malley with a dialogue sequence. And looking back on it, I definitely got the sort of look of O'Malley better, but it's still off. I don't know why. Maybe because it's just a head. That could be it. I'm not too sure. So I'm using the pencil brush that I always use for this. Actually, I think I'm using the inking brush. If I think about it, it's like a biro looking pen. It's quite a nice little brush. So today we're doing the dialogue sequence, which I took from the English aristocrats, and I believe he says, "Hey, you're coming along. I bet you're a real tiger in your neighborhood." It's quite a long sequence of words, and to be honest, before the finding out about the whole animation, not animation, the audio to dialogue sequence, I wouldn't have been able to do it, but now with it, just way easier. And my screen froze again. 1 second. There we go. So yeah, it's just made that a lot easier. So still looking at this, I don't know why it doesn't look like O'Malley the entire time. And maybe it's because I got the simplified shape a bit too simple. I'm just not sure. Something about it seems off. Yes, at the end of this one there will be the animations. You can hear it with the dialogue. And I believe this was quite a long animation. I think it might have been like a 6 or 7 second animation, which is quite long. Push it 24 FPS. It's nearly 240. Take away 72 is 170. No, 100. 174, 160. 168 it might be. So I think it's 168 drawings. Yeah, it just gets to show with animation. It's a long, laborious process, which is why planning is very essential. Sort of my key takeaway from this, which I keep reaffirming in these recordings, but I feel like if I say it out loud, I'll remember it. So, more so for me. But yes, good planning means good animation, really. There's people that can do animation without it, but you know. The problem with animation, for anybody learning it and doing it, is it's always a race against time. You know, it takes so long to do everything, and getting your timing right is always a big issue. So there's always something. I wonder if this animation would look better if I actually attached a body, even if it was like a static body. Maybe it would have been better. Not sure. So I am trying to keep those basic mouth shapes that you see in dialogue, but with the cat kind of muzzle. And it does pose its own sort of challenges. You know, the problem with a lot of human shapes and human mouth shapes is you are doing the same sort of things, but I think you do have to look for the uniqueness of the creature that you're animating, if it's something unique. So how his mouth would move with that. And sometimes it has its own unique kind of way. In the same way that we look at actors or something like that, like Sylvester Stallone's probably a pretty good example. In that if you do an impression of him in real life, you know, you move your face in a certain way to do it. So same with a cat in that or in any sort of animal where you would take those basics that you know from the dialogue animation and then transpose them into something unique with the creature. So I believe this was one of the longer. So the reason why we're looking at this already with the blue sketch behind it, so the reason I didn't show that is because I believe that this is my second attempt at this. So my first attempt was that awful that I rushed out this second attempt. So like I was saying before, or said the other week with less is more for the animation, I think this again would have really suited with really locking the head and the poses into a certain one or two keyframes, making sure those are just absolutely perfect. I think that would have been a lot more beneficial, but you know, I got overzealous and I wanted to do too much, which happens. Happens to a lot of animators. It's like the food thing where people say your eyes are bigger than your stomach. Very common thing in animation. So I believe this is the last one I'm recording today, because I'm going to render them out. So that'll be good. So what else have I got to say about this? I took a quick break. Most of the time it's me doing stretches or something like this, because I'm always in pain from this. There we go. Screen froze again. Nope, I just seem to have just not done anything for a while. Okay, well we will, I guess I'll just keep talking. I could cut this out. I really could. That does kind of mess up with everything. So I guess I'll just keep Alright, so with the Aristocats, so when I was approaching this, there was a lot of characters I could have done. Obviously, there was a lot of the main cat kind of characters, but the reason I went for O'Malley is because A, he was the easiest to find dialogue things for, and B, he was the first character I found a model sheet for. Whilst the other ones had model sheets, but they weren't as well, either they didn't have model sheets or they weren't as refined. So he was the one with the most amount of resources available, so I just instinctively went for him. But yeah, so he was definitely an interesting choice, I'd say. But I wanted to do this sort of Disney style because personally I love the classic Disney style, and my favorite classic Disney movie is Pinocchio. It's actually probably my favorite animated movie of all time. It's the only real animated film for me that I can't not just watch. So every other film I can kind of, I don't know, joke around, or like if I've got a sketchbook nearby, I can like just do little funny caricatures of what the characters look like. But Pinocchio is the only film for me that I really can't. I just find myself getting stuck in, or getting drawn into the story very easily. Actually, it appears that we're back on the animation. I don't know what that was about. Okay, so again, you can see I've done the whole mapping out of the audio in the top corner, and trying to keep those mouth shapes accurate. So I think what we're learning about dialogue is vowel. What are they called? Syllable usage, strong key poses, less is more. Good mouth shapes and look for uniquenesses. Uniquenesses? Unique things you can do with the mouth. So for some reason my computer is... Oh, that's why. My viewing program of this animation has crashed. So load that back up, and there we go. Okay, so we're back on. So yeah, it should be back. I think the problem with this plan is that a lot of this is automatic, so I'm sort of making the face a bit too flat. You don't see that 3D geometry that's really with it, sort of things, and I don't really know how I can capture that. But definitely see that as an issue. Oh, why? My video player's crashed again. Seems to be a frequent problem. Alright, well I'll just keep talking. So yeah, focusing on the basic movements and dialogue, and overall just getting that to be right. You can say that getting good keyframing and good posing and is essential to any animation, but I would say more so for other animations. Things like arcs and curves are more of something that people pay attention to, or that you should pay attention to. Because when your character's not talking, they're moving. If not moving, they're talking, or what they're doing. Or they're doing both. So, for the movement and things like that, to keep it all fluid, we do a thing called arcs, where we'll plan out where the sort of basic geometry moves in a certain way, so like an arm or something like that. The reason you do that is so if you draw it like frame by frame with just your mind, you know, it might go a bit forward, might go a bit backwards as it's like rising up. Whilst if you have an arc, it follows a nice fluid path, and it looks very romanticized as opposed to realistic. Which is something that I think is kind of missing in a lot of, well, not just animated films, but films in general nowadays. I watched behind the scenes of one of the Star Wars creations, and they were talking about one of the animations for a character of Yoda, and he was in a fight where he's like in a very windy place with his robe around him, and they did it realistic first, and it kind of flopped around him like a wet towel, and it was very realistic, and it looked exactly how it would look in that sort of situation, but it didn't look good. Sort of thing. So they were focused. So then they redid it, and the director was saying, try to do it more romanticized instead of it being like realistic, kind of heavy cloth. Have it be kind of like floaty, like there's an inner sort of air that's being created from it, like a parachute sort of thing, and it looked way better. So sometimes you need to break those realistic boundaries for animation or just for visual storytelling to get that romantic kind of feeling and things like that. So yeah, how does that apply to my animation? Not really any idea. But just animation in general, and storytelling in general. I just feel like having that romantic. Yeah, so applying that to arcs, I guess. Yeah, so having something that's not realistic, and having something that's visually appealing. Unlike this train wreck that I seem to be making. After Effects is crashed again. Good. Well, now it's fully crashed. Okay. Alright, well, I'll keep talking for a couple of minutes. So yeah, I seem to, in having a kind of look at this, I seem to have focused more on a flat kind of, you don't really see that geometry for it. Yeah, like yes, the eyes are in the right place, yes, the nose is in the right place, but you don't it doesn't feel like it has that like bridge of depth. So it doesn't feel like the nose is in a specific place that kind of leads up to the body. I think that's what I didn't really accomplish, and that would have been good. And I think the way to do that is to factor in the sort of second geometry for it. So if I added like a smaller ball or something like that for the basic volumes, that was something that was supposed to cover the nose to kind of muzzle area, then I could have made more construction lines or more kind of detail that made it taper up to the eyes, which creates that separation and that depth for the face. Whilst here, I don't know, it just looks a bit too flat. It kind of looks like my cat, who's got a very fat face. So, yeah. Also, I can tell that I'm rushing. I think it's because this is the second crack at this and I was running out of time on the day. So, yeah. But it goes to show that even the most subtle sort of things, because I remember doing this and spending like, why doesn't it look right? But, like the occasional frame looks right, and it is subtle things like getting that nose to eye distance and sort of those little connective lines, or adding just a one or two line here or there can really just completely change the design, or add what you're missing. It's very very fascinating. This is day 30 actually, so that means I've got 2 more weeks and then we're done. And I believe that, having a look at my little notes here, every other day I think I did everything. So there's no more like missed a day, nothing like that. You get full on all of them, which is good for this. So what else have we got to do? I believe we're coming up to the time here, so I might duck out. So I'll leave you with the animation. I hope you've enjoyed today. Well, again, it wasn't my favorite animation. Looking back on it, I don't think it was that good. But as long as we learn from our mistakes, then that's positive. Right. Well, enjoy the animation. Stick around after the time, and I'll see you tomorrow for the 7th character. Technically 8th, because this week was 2, but you know what I mean. Okay, well, have a good day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
You're coming on. I bet you're a real tiger in your neighborhood.